Greetings and welcome to the Bright Mountain Media, Inc. webinar. It is now my pleasure to introduce your host, Greg Peters, President and COO. Thank you, Mr. Peters. You may begin.
Thank you and welcome, everyone. I'd first like to draw your attention to our forward-looking statement slide. I'm sure you've all seen this before. We will be making some estimates, projections, forecasts. I'd just like to draw your attention to this forward-looking statement slide. To jump right in, Bright Mountain Media is an end-to-end digital media advertising services platform. And what that means is we have a business unit which actually focuses on the consolidation of the product-to-market process, meaning integrating technologies, products, markets into the supply chain to make it a more efficient and effective process for all involved. And we also have downstream websites which attract very valuable demographics that the ad industry is looking to reach. So we're very focused on making the process more efficient. As you probably are aware, the digital media ad market is about $140 billion, plus or minus. This year is kind of an exception because of COVID, but the market seems to be fairly resilient to that. Management has extensive deep industry experience, both in the technology side, management side, publisher side, content side, and advertising. And we're focused on acquiring financially attractive companies that complete this initiative. So our growth will be through synergistic growth of the acquisitions as well as extensive additions to our capabilities and revenue from continued acquisitions in the future. Our guidance this year is $22 million in top-line revenue, which is a 214% increase compared to fiscal 2019. The company is entering into its second phase, or did enter in second phase in 2019. The company was originally a collection of websites focused on the young male audience. In the summer of 2019, we acquired Oceanside for ad tech capabilities out of Tel Aviv. Then we acquired Media House, which was formerly known as News Distribution Network, or NDN, which is a fairly large syndicator of news content, all kinds of entertainment content, and technologies required by the websites to play and monetize that content. And then in June of 2020, not very long ago, we acquired Wild Sky Media, which is a collection of 6 websites which are primarily female-focused, which have about 30 million monthly uniques every month attending visiting those websites, which is the foundation for building a very large walled garden around a very attractive demographic that the ad industry seeks to reach. The market opportunity, as I mentioned before, is very, very large. In 2020, the market, by our current estimates, will probably be in the 140 billion range. It may be a little higher than 140 billion because of political advertising, but COVID did kind of dampen this forecast a bit. However, there's pent-up demand on the commercial side. The commercial ad agencies retrenched a little bit in the first and second quarter to make sure their messaging was correct. But what has not changed at all is the continued growth of mobile devices, people using mobile devices, and the continued transition of television advertising over to a mobile device market. So that is the fuel for this continued growth. There is a duopoly of Facebook and Google, which take a significant amount. And if you add Amazon and Twitter and some of the other large social media platforms, we believe there's still a market that's remaining of $28 to $30 billion. That is our addressable market, even if you eliminate the amount of spend that's going to the larger players. So there's a huge market, and there's no dominant player in that market. And again, this market continues to grow. So just as a little tutorial here on web page monetization, because a lot of people don't really understand that on a page, there's only about 4, maybe 5 ways to make money on that page. Content always dominates the page. People go to sites that they value either for news and information or for decision making or frankly just for entertainment or special interest. And on those pages, you'll see video at the top of the page. That's the primary location for a pre-roll ad to run. And therefore, it is the highest value advertisement moneymaker for the web page. And then you have perhaps video that is placed lower on the page. You may have it on the right rail. The top right, on the right rail, you may have a display ad. You may have a display ad across the top. So it's fairly simple. These are products that are placed on the page that the advertisers are sponsoring, and they're paying our company to run these ads across a syndicated network of companies which include the largest newspaper, magazine, radio, and television sites, and also they pay us to run the ads on our owned and operated sites. So it's a fairly simple diagram here, but just so you know, the composition of the supply chain for this page is very complicated. I'll take you through historically what this supply chain has looked like. So you have brands on the left side of this diagram. They can be any of your Fortune 50 or Fortune 500 brands. Some have their own trading desk internally. Some use ad agencies, and ad agencies use their own trading desk internally or external trading desks. These trading desks, the primary function is to target the desired demographic in going to whatever device that person is going to in a certainty kind of fashion. So agencies and brands want to reach people when they want to reach them, how they want to reach them, where they want to reach them, in multiples of exposures. That could be campaign-driven, it could be promotion-driven, or it could be general awareness, like a public service announcement. So there's a lot of strategizing on the left side, but then it becomes very complicated. Reaching the targeted demographic, going to various websites or apps is a very complicated product-to-market process. So there could be an ad agency, a trading desk, a DSP, or a demand-side platform. There could be all kinds of ad targeting technologies being used. There could be data management platforms or customer data platforms. And then there's a supply-side platform, which is aggregating publishers. So the easy way to look at this, demand side is aggregating the dollars to be spent, and the supply side is aggregating where those people are going every day. And then there's ad serving technology required to actually deliver those ads to every product that is on those pages. So when you look at that across the top, it's just a very important point here. 70% of every ad dollar is absorbed by the middlemen of the supply chain. Now, for those of you who have studied other industries, anytime there is a transition like there was here from brick and mortar to a digital world, there's always a ton of entrants that come in, all chasing that pot of gold or that huge addressable market in this transition. And that's what's happened here. There have been multiple iterations of technologies, of business models, of publishers, of brands that are all involved in this process, and segments that have been created by those entrants through the process. So in every industry when this happens, the supply chain becomes very crowded. So the opportunity here is to consolidate this supply chain and integrate the technologies, the markets, the people, so that you end up with a very efficient process that instead of 70% being taken by the middlemen, it needs to be reduced more significantly so that the publishers gain the appropriate retail percentage of that ad spend to make sure they're being brought closer together to the brands so that they are actually listening to the brands, that there's one-step process between the brands and the publishers to make sure that the publishers survive and thrive and make sure the brands are reaching the people that they want to reach. So this is a natural industry consolidation. These business models that are independent today whether they're just unique technologies or actual data-driven or fraud prevention or optimization or verification. Those should all just be features on one integrated platform. And that is what Bright Mountain's current focus is all about. We are acquiring companies in that supply chain. We're also acquiring very valuable companies downstream that are actually the website and website holding companies themselves for two reasons. One is to make the process more efficient, and then we also will benefit from that more efficient process by achieving gross margins that trend very high. Very efficient website operations can have gross margins that are in the 70s or 80% range. And so we're actually helping ourselves by making the supply chain and product to market process more efficient, and then we'll benefit downstream with these walled gardens that the ad agencies and brands will want to focus on and deliver their ad buys into. So our team today is comprised of Bright Mountain, which was the original aggregation of male-focused websites, with the addition of Oceanside that was purchased last summer, the addition of Media House, which was purchased last fall or early winter, and then Wild Sky that was purchased this spring. Our current share price, it says $1.50. It's actually $2.10 today, which takes the market cap to over $220 million. You see our shares outstanding, our float. Our insiders do hold about 43% of the business. Our headquarters is in Boca Raton. We have operations in Atlanta, New York, Thailand, Tel Aviv, and Mumbai, as well as multiple employees that are spread throughout the country today. Our management team is well experienced. Our chairman has done this 6 times. He's aggregated businesses, technologies in a variety of industry sectors, been very successful. I'm the person speaking now. I started NDN. Previously, I've ran Internet Network Services and been a VP for operations in a variety of other technology companies, including running the Middle East and Africa for AT&T. And Alan is our CFO. Alan spends a lot of time today, as you could imagine, consolidating operations and reporting SEC filings. And with our current rate of acquisitions, you can imagine the workload that we have on the financial side. So the key takeaways is it's just a platform model, consolidating the product to market process and making it much more efficient. There is a very strong acquisition pipeline because there are a lot of private companies out there that have found it difficult to acquire growth capital. They have great point solutions, great technology that should be integrated into a platform like ours. They need scale, so they're very interested in having discussions. The business model is primarily software-based, so it's very scalable. We have proprietary content. We also have ad delivery technologies that we owned. The break-even point, we will be break-even at $22 million this year. And, you know, that is this represents scale and growth. And our gross margins are very attractive, as we mentioned before. And again, the senior team has done this a few times, and this is a very exciting time to be in our industry. So I'd like to go to Q&A if there are any questions. I'll cover those. The first question is, in order to get a better understanding, could you elaborate or provide specifics on how you eliminate the middleman in the advertising supply chain and talk about the advantages this brings to publishers? The second part of that question is, do you have plans to reduce expenses since your acquisition of Wild Sky? So the first part of that question, eliminating the middleman in the advertising supply chain, you know, I always like to just jokingly use the iPhone as an example, that the iPhone was, 10 plus independent products or companies or businesses before, and now all of those are just features on one integrated platform that's faster, smarter, cheaper than using independent companies. That's all we're doing here. So I know it sounds intuitively obvious, but when you look at the advertising supply chain and you look at demand-side platforms that are being replaced by trading desks, software-driven, very similar to real-time bidding and stock buys, there is always a need for faster, smarter, cheaper efficiencies here. So on the demand-side platform, aggregating those buyers is very effective when you have a platform for them to log into, to see the data, to see the audience, and to determine exactly when, where, and how they can reach that audience with certainty. So that's a very much a focus for what we're doing. On the demand side, or data management platforms or customer data platforms, those again are all frankly easy to integrate. It all starts with the data, the segmentation of the data, the productization of the data, and providing input for mobile data, website data, app data, and where you go during your days. That data is available and is, through a partnership can eliminate a significant step in the process, or through an acquisition can provide the kind of data management platform and productization of this data that we're seeing every day into a product for our site. On the ad delivery side, even on the SSP side, there's a tremendous aggregation of publishers that have already taken place by ad networks and arbitragers. Ad networks and arbitragers will go out of business because of their certainty is not there. It's not giving the ad buyers the visibility straight through to the code that lives on the page and the URL of the visitor to that page, with the understanding of the insights of that person that's entering the page or visiting the page. So the integration of ad technologies and SSPs has been naturally occurring anyway. There have been many leaders in that space, and so integrating those into our platform through acquisition and then combining all of that so that the publisher has certainty and the CPMs they're getting, and they have certainty that they're sharing the same vision as the ad buyer, and the ad buyer has the same vision as the publisher. We've got to bring those closer together. There's too many middlemen siphoning off this very valuable CPM that should be residing with the publishers. The plans to reduce expenses, yes, absolutely. So when you look at aggregating websites into a walled garden like we started with WildSky, many of these websites were operated as independent websites. They don't all need to recreate the wheel of every component to run their store. It's just like if you just think about franchises across the country, every franchise store itself is not recreating the supply chain or recreating the product to market process. They're doing what they do well at that retail storefront. There is a franchisee, or franchisor, I should say, that is actually taking care of the supply chain and making sure that everything is very efficient for that storefront to make sure that they do achieve the scale and synergy of a national footprint, and they can reduce those independent costs that they would be incurring normally. So we'll do that same thing across these websites. So when it comes to certain supply chain elements, it will be aggregated into one delivery platform for all of the websites. Certain technologies, certain ad buying, certain operational elements for social media interaction, things like that. But the bread and butter of what makes that website unique and different and the reason they attract their audience, that will remain independent. But there'll be a lot of synergies that will occur in that product to market supply chain and underlying operational elements. So I think that pretty much covers that. If there are any other questions, I'll take those. If not, I think it's probably time to wrap up the call, and I welcome your participation and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. This concludes today's webcast. You may disconnect at this time. Thank you for your participation and have a wonderful day.